Hello YouTube, this is PensyFan17, and today in this video we will be doing a speed build on the Pennsylvania Railroad Hutchinson Industrial Branch module. So let's get into it here. Okay, so in this video I'm pretty much just doing work on areas that aren't really that important, so I'm kind of over detailing stuff that I don't really need to do that much detailing to, but that's fine. This is a small route. Doing a ton of detail won't really drag down the frame rates or anything because it's a small module. So, but like this track here, this is the Western Maryland branch, which interchanges with the Pennsylvania Road branch, and this really isn't gonna, like the operators on this route really aren't going to be driving trains on these tracks, so they're not really going to see this that much. But I don't know, figured I'd still detail it just for the heck of it. Why not? So you can see here I'm putting down some base textures, some of this grass. It works best to put base textures down before you put other textures down on top, just so you don't have to do all this like matching up like I'm doing right here. So, but yeah, this area here, I plan the stuff on the inside of the tracks is going to be more industrial type stuff on the other side of this creek here, and then where I am putting down textures now is going to be kind of a weedy, tree-covered embankment of sorts. You can see how tough it is to get these textures to match up with that, and I'm trying not to get grass on the tracks. I'm trying to keep the ballast under the tracks, so that's why I'm being so meticulous with it. Alright, so I'm trying to find a texture for this embankment here, and it normally takes me a while to pick one that I like, but I stumbled across this one and I liked it, so I went with it. Looks pretty good. A lot of the PBR textures, these are all PBR textures I'm using, by the way. A lot of the PBR textures in Trainz are too bright, and that first one was too bright. This one is nice. It's got a nice color to it, so I went with it. And you can see it looks good, but it looks kind of blocky. So I was hoping the like putting weeds and trees and stuff on the embankment would kind of cover that squareness up, and it seemed to do that, as you'll see a little later on. You can see I'm being really meticulous about putting gravel under the road and stuff. It's probably not necessary in this area. It's really something you're not really going to look at much when you're on this route. But I want this route to be, you know, something where you can kind of explore if you want and just check it out. And I also wanted this to be something I could practice my skills on to a degree, and so that's kind of what I'm doing here, even though no one's going to really see it or appreciate it other than in this video. So right now I'm putting down some bushes. These are these nice tree American dogwood assets. Love those assets. I put them everywhere. And now I'm putting up a barrier. These road barrier assets. These are kind of like 1950s era guardrails. And I put these down, and you see later on that I kind of go back and redo the way I put the splines down, because I'm trying to match the spline points up with the road so that it gets a nice curve and in the same angles with the road. And there's tricks like that, like matching spline points, that make this easier, because if you try to like do it the way I'm doing it here, it's difficult. But if you match the spline points like you'll see I do here in a little bit, it comes out really nice. Voila. Starting to look good. Alright, here I start getting into the Turfex, which this stuff is awesome and yet a pain in the neck at the same time. So I'm trying to pick the one type of grass I want. I can't really find it, but trying to edit it, and editing Turfex is so complicated. I haven't figured it out. I figured some stuff out. I haven't figured it all out. You can see I only try messing with it and I'm not getting anywhere. Once I figure it out, I'll make a tutorial video on it, so you guys don't have to spend a ton of time trying to figure it out, but that might be a while. The nice thing though is there's enough Turfex grass is built into TRS 19 that you can kind of just use those, and you see that's what I eventually do here. I just pick the one, I forget, I think it's grass long seasonal or something. It's kind of a nice longer grass. It's kind of long, straighter, wavy grass that seemed to fit into this area pretty good. So I'm just putting that down pretty liberally through here. Kind of just giving the illusion of a kind of grass overgrown embankment. And then just putting it down all around over here. The Turfex is really nice. It can be a pain in the neck sometimes, but I think it's really worth it overall. You can see here, it looks pretty good. It doesn't quite look right on like sharp contours, but it looks pretty good here, I think. These bushes I'm going to use here are bush common hazel assets. Kind of look like kind of a scrawny tree growing out of these rocks, kind of. Seem to give a good effect, so I put a bunch of those down. Just liberally spreading them all around, kind of randomly. Just kind of clicking away randomly. There we go. That area is pretty much done. That looks really good. Over here, I'm just going to start moving some trees off the road. Looks good. I'm really happy with the way that embankment came out. I'm kind of happily surprised with how well that went. Something I've never really done before is do an embankment like that and try to get it to look right. So I'm happy with the way it looked, and I'm hoping that that experience will carry over to other embankments I do on other routes that people are actually going to probably see. But this right here is supposed to be kind of give the illusion of a creek going up into the woods. It's stub-ended. It just goes a little bit. And I was trying to put some rocks in to kind of give it some like creek rock kind of look. I couldn't really find anything else I wanted. Tried a couple different PBR stone textures. I eventually tried this one, this kind of browner one, and put that in, and I don't know, it didn't look right. It was too bright. It kind of drew too much attention to that, and I kind of just want that to be an inconspicuous kind of just creek going up into the woods that you don't really think about, but you know is there. So you see, I put that down, didn't like it, and I just deleted it. Just went back and undid all that. And I think the effect looks good. It just kind of, you know it's there, but it doesn't really catch your attention, which is kind of the point. Alright, so over here, there's another embankment here I noticed, so I figured I'd just kind of do the same thing over here, just put a little bit of rock texture up and put some bushes and stuff and some Turfex, and that's what I did, kind of finish out this area. This particular corner of this road here, I think is done. I mean, I overdid it, I'm sure, but I think it looks really good. If you're wondering how I got that road spline so smooth, I just used the smooth spline tool, I think is what it's called. It took me forever to figure out how to do that. I mean, I don't know. That tool's there, but it's kind of not very intuitive. So I knew I could do that, but I didn't know how, and I eventually did figure it out. So it's a smooth spline tool or whatever. But anyway, moving on. So I've considered that area done for the moment, and I came over here back into the town area here. That's off the edge of the interchange between the Western Maryland, or whatever road you prefer, and the Pennsylvania Road. So this is kind of like a little downtown suburb area off to the edge of the city, and just continuing to work on this, putting some buildings down. So you can see here, both of these buildings are pretty similar, but one's taller than the other, so I had the brilliant idea of matching them up and making them one building, which I think came out really good. And that's the way, it seems like in Trainz, a lot of the buildings are too small. They're like unrealistically small, a lot of them. So you have to mash them together to make them bigger and just to make them unique, because there's not a ton of assets in Trainz, especially good ones. Now that a lot of the kind of the bar has been raised with TRS 19, you gotta have some assets that are not just squares with you know, blurry skins on them. You got to have good looking assets, and there's not a ton of those around, so you got to kind of be creative and make do with what you have. And speaking of that, I was trying to find some like apartment houses, like block houses, condominium kind of things. Couldn't really find anything like that that looked good. I did stumble across, I'll show you in a minute, I did stumble across these right here, these tenement houses asset, and there's only one of them, but you know, they look pretty good. I don't really like the balconies in the front. I think that kind of doesn't look downtowny enough, but it works. And so I just took 5 of these and stuck them here in between this kind of the downtown area and the wooded hillside here to kind of transition between downtown and the hill, kind of woodsy area. I think it came out pretty good. So just putting these in here. And I love this little area here because there's no, as you can see, there's nowhere to park on the road, so there needs to be a place to park, you know, behind these tenement houses for the people who live in these tenement houses. So I'm going to make a little driveway in the back here and a parking area in the back here in a minute. Right now I'm just making sure these are all not levitating. Which, as you can see, that one's levitating. Bring it down. There we go. Looks good. See, that the balconies don't really look right, but I don't know. It's okay. You got to work with what you get, with what you got. Speaking of levitating, that truck's levitating. I don't know. I think those like Mack truck assets, for some reason they just randomly start levitating. Like you put them flat with the ground and then they randomly start levitating the next time you get into the route. I don't know what the deal is with those, but it's annoying. Anyway, right here I'm cutting a hole in the sidewalk here and straighten it back out so that the people who live here have a place to drive back into park. Good enough. As you can see, I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and I'm being really OCD with all this stuff, and if I'm going to build a route like the Pennsylvania Road Central Division, which I'm going to start working on here soon enough and start doing videos on, I can't be like that. I will never get anything done, and I know that, but this route I can be OCD and, you know, do that and be fine because it's such a small route. But you got to know, perfectionism has its place, and in this route it's okay. But other routes, like the Pennsylvania Railroad Central Division, if I went perfectionist, A, I'd never get it done, and B, it would lag so bad because it's like way overpopulated with stuff. So that route, I'm going to have to just stick to trackside detailing, which is fine. There's going to be plenty of that to do, but here I'm just going crazy. So I'm using PBR textures, and there's not that many good gravel PBR textures. A lot of them, the gravel is too big. So what I end up doing is using ballast PBR textures, which there's not that many of those either. But this is one, I think I got it off of Trainz Forge to go with their PBR track. It's called WP Ballast or something like that. And it's pretty good. I haven't really used it much. I kind of just discovered it recently, and I like it. It looks good. Okay, this little alleyway here, if you can look closely, you see these jointed rail downtown buildings have like bases to them that stick out, so I was kind of trying to hide that, so I put that fence there and put some of that stuff in that alley to hide that. Not that anyone's ever going to look in there. Again, OCD. I'm going crazy with the perfectionism here, but I don't know. It's you know, practice for times when that's something that someone's actually going to look at. So splines are annoying. If you are in Trainz, done stuff in Trainz, you know splines are annoying, and that's what happened there. I was trying to not get those splines to connect, and you gotta press the shift key or something, and you gotta do it right. Like if you let go of it at the wrong time, it connects. It's just annoying. I don't know. So I'm trying to put a fence here to because I'm trying to kind of give a scene transition between. Now what am I doing over here? I just randomly decided to come over here and work over here. I just randomly move around and do whatever catches my fancy. So eventually I'll go back and do some more work on that parking lot, but right now I just randomly decided to come over here and put some buildings on this road here. Just as this road here is on a hill, I think this came out with a nice effect. It's sunk in, it's sideways, but it looks good. And the eventual plan is to kind of line this road all the way up with buildings until it gets up to the steeper hillside, and then I'll kind of just let it taper off into, woods and stuff. I'm not exactly sure how big I intend this kind of suburb downtown area to be, but I don't know. It'll come along on its own. Okay, so now I just randomly decided to go back and work on this area, which is kind of a no man's land in between these downtown blocks. So I decided to put like just kind of a privately owned, like those just dumpy random areas that you see in town. So you see what I did there, and I didn't catch it in time to say anything about it while I was doing it. But I took a road spline and put it down and used the smooth spline tool to smoothen that area. Then I got rid of that spline and just put gravel down. So I kind of made a smooth gravel road, and that's a trick that I find to be really helpful to use. You can do that for other things. If you're trying to make something smooth, just put a spline down, use a smooth spline tool, and then delete the spline, and the terrain is still smooth. So here I'm just doing some more terrain or texture work. And if I would have put a base texture down, this would have been easier, but what the heck. So here, just trying to find a building that I can kind of mash up against these woods to kind of fill out this no man's land area. These jointed rail industrial buildings, they're really good buildings. Kind of a little bit modern, I think, just the way they're kind of run down a little bit, but they work. But they're small though. A lot of them are really small, so I do this kind of stuff where I just take 2 or 3 or 4 of them and mash them together randomly, and it's actually got a good effect because it makes it look like they're different buildings. They're not all the same asset. So it's kind of a blessing and a curse in a way. Both of these are levitating, and both of them are not at the same height, so I'm trying to get them level, and for some reason they wouldn't match up. Normally, the heights are done in like increments of 5, so you can get stuff to match up, like 5, I think, what is it, 0.05 meters or something? It's like in metric. It should be in imperial units, but it's in metric for some reason. Some measurements are metric, some are imperial, I don't know. But anyway, they didn't quite match up, but with the way the roof was on that asset, it's fine. Anyway, so now I'm just randomly coming back and finishing up this parking lot. Just putting some cars down. Probably going to do some more detailing on the tenement buildings themselves. Like I was thinking if I could find an asset of like just a random person sitting and then like that's animated, just them sitting and kind of moving randomly, like even like rocking in a rocking chair or something, I could put that on one of the balconies just for the heck of it. These cars are really nice. I mean, they're nicer than the car assets that Trainz has for the modern cars. I mean, kind of surprises me because Trainz is really leans heavy towards modern assets and stuff like cars, rolling stock, stuff like that, and locomotives is just heavily skewed towards modern times. But these particular car assets are way nicer than anything you can find for modern times. So that's nice. Us 50s modelers aren't completely forgotten. But yeah, I'm just using, again, the tree American boxwood assets, the very small ones, and then I'm using these grass, I think it's grass 1D assets. They're just like a little tuft of grass that grows up, and they just really are nice to break up the monotony. So you see what I'm doing here is I'm actually putting them in cracks in this asphalt here, which this is this gas station scene that I did recently. Really nice looking scene. Anyway, that's kind of where I left off for this video. Don't want to go too long, so... Thanks for watching.